I want to talk to you today about it's all good. Life is full of things that we don't like. Disappointments, a friend betrayed us, we didn't get the promotion. We see these things as being negative, thinking that was bad, didn't work out, my prayers weren't answered. But God won't allow a difficulty unless He's going to somehow use it for our good. This means everything that happens in life, we may not understand it, but if you'll keep the right attitude, it'll push you further into your destiny. Every closed doors, the delays, the person that did you wrong, the loan that didn't go through, God says it's all good. I'm in control. It may not feel good, but trust me and I'll use it for your good. And when you understand this principle, life is much more freeing. You don't get upset because a coworker is playing politics trying to keep you down. You know it's all good. God allowed it and He's going to use it. You tried, but the business didn't make it. You don't give up on your dreams. You know it's all good. It's a part of the process. Even simple things. You get stuck in traffic. You don't let it frustrate you, ruin the rest of your day. You know God is directing your steps. He may be keeping you from an accident, or He may be developing patience in you. Whatever it is, keep the right perspective. It's all good. This boils down to trusting God. We're never going to understand everything that happens in life. If you try to figure it all out, you'll be frustrated. God has an advantage. He can see the big picture for our lives. He knows where the dead ends are, where the shortcuts are, where the bumpy roads are. And sometimes He'll close a door that we're asking Him to open because He knows it would be a waste of time. When you're a mature person, instead of getting bitter, you say, God, I trust You. I may not like it, but I believe You know what's best for me. Some of the things that God has in your future, if He gave them to you right now, you couldn't handle it. He loves you too much to let it happen. He's developing your character, growing you up. That boss that gets on your nerves, doesn't treat you right, you keep trying to pray him away. The reason he's not going anywhere is because God's using him like sandpaper to rub the rough edges off of you. Now, as you keep doing the right thing, keeping your mouth closed, being respectful, that's doing a work in you. You couldn't develop your character without Him. You may not like it, but it's good. It's getting you prepared for the next level. God is asking us, do you trust me with your closed doors? Do you trust me with your unanswered questions, with the things you don't understand? Instead of fighting everything you don't like, why don't you have this new perspective? It's all good. This grouchy boss, I can't stand him, but I know he's good for me. This child that's hard to raise, this sickness I'm dealing with, this dream that's taken forever, I don't like it, but I'm not going to live bitter. I know God is on the throne. He's in control of my life. It may have been meant for my harm, but He's promised He will use it to my advantage. That's what Paul said in Romans. All things work together for good to those that love the Lord. Not some things, but all things. They may not be good at the time. It's painful to go through a loss. It's discouraging when a dream doesn't work out. By itself, that may not be good, but God has promised He's going to bring it all together. One day you'll look back and say that was good. We celebrated Good Friday recently. We call it good today, but 2,000 years ago, when Jesus was crucified, didn't look like a Good Friday. The disciples thought it was the worst day of their lives. Their dreams were shattered. The man they had given their lives to was gone. Doubts filled their mind. Maybe He wasn't who He said He was. Maybe He tricked us and we wasted all this time. I can imagine Mary, the mother of Christ, weeping and weeping as she sees her Son on the cross. She's heartbroken, in so much pain. If someone would have suggested, Mary, this is a Good Friday, she'd have thought, what are you talking about good? Look what's happening. But we all face these times when life doesn't make sense. a dream dies, a relationship comes to an end, or we come down with an illness. Nothing about the situation seems good. Good would have been the last word we would have used to describe this Friday. Better description would have been tragic Friday, lonely Friday, betrayed Friday. In the heat of the battle, it's easy to get discouraged. The disciples could have said, God, why did you let Judas betray him? Why did you let the soldiers crucify him? God, why'd you abandon your son in his time of greatest need? But a few days later, after he arose from the grave and cooked them breakfast on the beach, appeared to them in the upper room, they realized he was who he said he was. They looked back on that Friday and said, it wasn't what we thought. It wasn't depressing Friday. It wasn't tragic Friday. It was all a part of his plan. It was Good Friday. They looked back on what they thought was the darkest day of their lives and they called it good. What am I saying? It's all good. It may not be good right now, may not make sense on its own, but God knows how to bring it all together. And what you think is going to stop you, hold you back, can I tell you, if you will stay in faith, one day you will look back and say that it was good. If Judas had not betrayed Jesus, we wouldn't have salvation. God used the betrayal to move Jesus toward his destiny. The betrayal at the time didn't seem good. It hurts when somebody does you wrong, walks out on you, breaks your heart. You may not see it at the time, but without that betrayal, like Jesus, you couldn't become who you were created to be. If they left you, you didn't need them. If they walked away, they weren't a part of your destiny. It may be painful Friday right now, but keep moving forward. Sunday is coming. New beginnings are on the way. A resurrection is in your future. This is what I'm believing for. But God, you know what's best for me. I trust you. If you're only going to be happy if God does it your way, that's not really trusting. That's not praying, that's giving God orders. God, here's what I want you to do, when to do it, where to do it, here's who to use. I found God doesn't take orders. But this is one of the main reasons we get frustrated, discouraged, because it's not happening our way. But when you develop this trust, you let God do it his way. You know it's all good. If the door opens, you thank God. If it doesn't open, you still thank him. About 6 months after that last property sold, Divine told about this couple. They would go up to the hospital every week to visit people and encourage them. And one day the man had just parked his car and he was walking across the street to the main entrance. This car came around the corner very fast, almost out of control, and hit the man, knocked him up on the hood, over the car, and down to the pavement. He was rushed to the emergency room where they discovered that he had bleeding on his brain. They had to take a full body scan to see if there were any more injuries. They were looking, of course, for broken bones, for any more bleeding. That was all fine, but they did find a tumor on his kidney. They did a biopsy and found out that it was cancer. A few days after the swelling went down, he had surgery to remove the kidney. Today he's cancer-free. The surgeon told him if they had not found that cancer, it was the type that spread very quickly, most likely would have taken his life. My point is, it's all good. Even things that at the time seem bad. Going to the hospital to volunteer and you get hit by a car, man, it seemed like you got bad luck. Nothing good happened for you. No, God wouldn't have allowed it if he wasn't going to use it for good. We may not always see it. Joe, I don't believe this because I've had things happen and it did nothing but pull me down. You don't know what God was doing behind the scenes, or maybe God hasn't brought it all together yet. This is what faith is all about. When things happen that we don't like, disappointments, bad breaks, betrayal, we can get negative, live bitter, or we can say, God, I trust you. I don't understand it, but I believe when you bring it together, it's going to work for me and not against me. Joseph did in the scripture. Nobody had more bad breaks than him. As a teenager, his brothers betrayed him, threw him into a pit. They ended up selling him into slavery. He was lied about, falsely accused. He spent years in prison for something that he didn't do. It was one bad break after another. He could have lived negative, bitter, but he understood this principle, that even though it may look bad, feel bad, be unfair, when it comes together, God's going to use it for our good. After 13 years of trouble, God not only vindicated Joseph, but he promoted him. He was put second in command of the whole nation. Looking back, Joseph would tell you that whole time that God was directing his steps. All those bad breaks were a part of God's plan to get him to where he was supposed to be. The betrayal felt bad, but the truth is, it was good. It was another step toward his destiny. Being sold into slavery, that was unfair, that was wrong. He didn't like it, but he wouldn't change it. Without that disappointment, he would have never become who God created him to be. Quit fighting everything that you don't like. God wouldn't have allowed it if it wasn't going to move you forward. The right attitude is, God, this doesn't make sense to me, but I believe when you bring it all together, one day it will make sense. And all those years, Joseph was doing the right thing when the wrong thing was happening. That was getting him prepared for his destiny. He was developing his character, strengthening his spiritual muscles. He was proving to God that he could handle it. I'm asking you to trust him. It may be Friday in your life. You don't see anything good. Don't worry, Sunday is coming. God is in control. And I believe in